25 forgotten recipes from Grandma's cookbook, straight out of the 1970s. Remember when every grandma had a handwritten cookbook filled with family secrets? Back in the 1970s, these treasured recipe collections held everything from scratch-made casseroles to elaborate holiday desserts that took all day to prepare until convenience foods and busy lifestyles made them gather dust in kitchen drawers. Let's take a trip back and explore 25 forgotten recipes from Grandma's cookbook straight out of the 1970s. Sunday dinner staples. Picture this. It's 1971, and Sunday afternoons meant the whole family gathering around Grandma's dining room table for elaborate meals that took hours to prepare and brought everyone together. These weren't weeknight dinners. They were special occasion meals that showcased Grandma's culinary skills and family traditions passed down through generations. 1. 7-layer hamburger casserole was Grandma's answer to feeding a crowd without breaking the bank. This hearty casserole started with a layer of sliced potatoes arranged in the bottom of a buttered baking dish, followed by layers of sliced onions, ground beef that had been browned and seasoned with salt and pepper, canned corn, diced tomatoes, and shredded cheese. The top layer was made from thinly sliced potatoes arranged in overlapping rows like fish scales, then brushed with melted butter and seasoned with paprika. The entire casserole was covered with foil and baked slowly until the potatoes were tender and the flavors had melded together, creating a complete meal in one dish that could feed 8 people. 2. Chicken and dumplings from scratch required an entire afternoon of careful preparation. A whole chicken was simmered slowly in a large pot with onions, carrots, celery, and herbs until the meat fell off the bones. Then the broth was strained and seasoned. The dumplings were made from scratch using flour, baking powder, salt, butter, and milk, mixed just until combined to create a sticky dough that was dropped by spoonfuls into the simmering broth. 3. Beef stroganoff with homemade noodles elevated the popular dish by making everything from scratch, including hand-rolled egg noodles. Tender strips of beef were slowly braised in a rich sauce made from beef broth, sour cream, mushrooms, and onions, while the egg noodles were made by combining flour, eggs, and oil into a dough that was rolled thin and cut into strips. Casserole queens. Picture this. It's 1972, and casseroles are reaching their golden age as grandmas across America perfect the art of combining ingredients in creative ways that stretch budgets while feeding families. These one-dish wonders represented both convenience and creativity, allowing busy grandmothers to prepare satisfying meals that could be assembled ahead of time and baked when needed. 4. Tuna noodle casserole supreme elevated the basic version with homemade cream sauce and a crunchy topping. White egg noodles were cooked until tender, then combined with a rich cream sauce made from butter, flour, milk, and cream that was seasoned with salt, pepper, and nutmeg. Canned tuna was flaked and folded in along with frozen peas and diced pimentos. Then the mixture was transferred to a buttered casserole dish. The topping was made from crushed potato chips mixed with grated cheese and melted butter, creating a golden, crunchy layer that contrasted beautifully with the creamy interior. 5. King Ranch chicken brought Tex-Mex flavors to the casserole table with layers of chicken, tortillas, and cheese sauce. Whole chickens were poached until tender. Then the meat was shredded and layered with fried corn tortilla strips and a rich cheese sauce made from processed cheese, chicken broth, and diced green chiles. Diced tomatoes, onions, and bell peppers were scattered throughout the layers, adding freshness and crunch to the rich, creamy casserole. 6. Green bean casserole from scratch transformed the holiday favorite by making every component from fresh ingredients. Fresh green beans were blanched until crisp tender, then combined with sautéed mushrooms and pearl onions in a homemade cream sauce. The mixture was topped with crispy fried onions that were made by soaking thin onion slices in buttermilk, dredging in seasoned flour, and frying until golden. Holiday traditions. Picture this. It's 1973, and holiday cooking is an elaborate affair that begins weeks in advance with shopping lists, ingredient preparation, and careful timing to ensure everything comes together perfectly. These special occasion recipes represented the pinnacle of Grandma's cooking skills, reserved for the most important family celebrations. 7. Standing rib roast with Yorkshire pudding was the centerpiece of Christmas dinner, requiring precise timing and technique. A large standing rib roast was seasoned generously with salt, pepper, and fresh herbs, then roasted at high heat initially to develop a crust before being reduced to a lower temperature for even cooking. The Yorkshire pudding was made using the drippings from the roast, combining them with a batter made from eggs, flour, and milk that was beaten until smooth and allowed to rest. The batter was poured into hot muffin tins that had been greased with the beef drippings, then baked in a very hot oven until the puddings puffed up golden and crispy outside while remaining tender inside. 8. Homemade fruitcake with brandy was a labor of love that began months before the holidays. Mixed candied fruits and nuts were soaked in brandy for weeks to develop deep flavors, then combined with a rich cake batter made from butter, brown sugar, eggs, and flour seasoned with warm spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice. The cake was baked slowly at a low temperature, then wrapped in brandy-soaked cheesecloth and aged for several weeks, with additional brandy brushed on regularly to keep it moist and flavorful. 9. Divinity candy required perfect weather conditions and precise technique to achieve the characteristic light, airy texture. Sugar, corn syrup, and water were cooked to the hardball stage while egg whites were beaten to stiff peaks. Then the hot syrup was slowly poured into the egg whites while beating constantly until the mixture became thick and glossy. Salad days. Picture this. It's 1974, and gelatin salads are reaching new heights of creativity as grandmas experiment with layered colors, suspended ingredients, and elaborate molded presentations. These weren't simple salads. They were architectural achievements that required planning, patience, and precise timing to create stunning centerpieces for dinner tables. 10. Rainbow ribbon salad showcased grandma's artistic skills with 6 distinct layers of flavored gelatin in different colors. Each layer was made separately using different flavored gelatin powders: cherry, orange, lemon, lime, blueberry, and grape, mixed with hot water and allowed to cool slightly before being poured carefully over the previous layer. Some layers included suspended ingredients like diced fruits or miniature marshmallows, while others were made with cream cheese or sour cream to create opaque white layers that separated the bright colors. The finished salad resembled a rainbow when sliced, creating a spectacular presentation that never failed to impress dinner guests. 11. Perfection salad combined shredded cabbage, carrots, and celery in a clear lemon gelatin that was both beautiful and refreshing. The vegetables were shredded very fine and arranged in patterns within the gelatin mold, creating an almost stained glass effect when the light shone through. The lemon gelatin was seasoned with a touch of vinegar and salt to enhance the vegetable flavors, while the vegetables provided a satisfying crunch that contrasted with the smooth gelatin. 12. Ambrosia fruit salad elevated the simple fruit mixture with homemade whipped cream and carefully selected ingredients. Fresh oranges were peeled and sectioned, removing all the white pith, then combined with fresh pineapple chunks, maraschino cherries, and miniature marshmallows. The dressing was made from heavy cream whipped to soft peaks and sweetened with powdered sugar and vanilla. Bread and butter. Picture this. It's 1975, and the aroma of homemade bread fills Grandma's kitchen as she maintains the time-honored tradition of baking from scratch. These fundamental recipes required patience, skill, and understanding of how ingredients work together to create the foundation of family meals. 13. Honey wheat bread was Grandma's weekly ritual, made with stone-ground whole wheat flour and local honey. The bread started with a sponge made from warm water, honey, and yeast that was allowed to foam and bubble, proving the yeast was active. Whole wheat flour was gradually incorporated along with salt and a touch of oil, creating a dough that was kneaded by hand for 10 minutes until it became smooth and elastic. The dough was shaped into loaves and allowed to rise in a warm place until doubled, then baked until the crust was golden brown and the bottom sounded hollow when tapped. 14. Buttermilk biscuits were made fresh every morning using a technique passed down through generations. Cold butter was cut into flour, baking powder, and salt until the mixture resembled coarse crumbs with some larger pieces of butter remaining. cold buttermilk was stirred in just until the dough came together. Then it was turned onto a floured surface and gently patted into a rectangle. The dough was folded over itself several times to create layers, then rolled to 3/4-inch thickness and cut with a sharp biscuit cutter. 15. Cinnamon coffee cake with streusel was Grandma's go-to recipe for Sunday brunch or afternoon coffee with neighbors. The cake batter was made from butter, sugar, eggs, and flour with sour cream added for tenderness and tang. Half the batter was spread in a tube pan, then covered with a cinnamon sugar mixture made from brown sugar, cinnamon, and chopped nuts. The remaining batter was spread on top, then topped with a streusel mixture made from butter, flour, and brown sugar. Sweet tooth satisfaction. Picture this. It's 1976, and Grandma's dessert table is a showcase of elaborate cakes, pies, and confections that require advanced techniques and hours of careful preparation. These weren't simple sweets. They were culinary achievements that demonstrated the highest levels of baking skill and creativity. 16. German chocolate cake from scratch featured 3 layers of rich chocolate cake with coconut pecan frosting made from scratch. The cake layers were made with German sweet chocolate that was melted and cooled, then incorporated into a batter made from butter, sugar, eggs, flour, and buttermilk. The layers were baked until springy to the touch, then cooled completely before assembly. The signature frosting was made by cooking evaporated milk, sugar, and egg yolks in a saucepan until thickened, then stirring in butter, vanilla, flaked coconut, and chopped pecans. 17. Lemon meringue pie with Mile High meringue showcased Grandma's mastery of pastry and meringue techniques. The pie crust was made from scratch using flour, lard, and ice water, rolled thin and baked until golden and flaky. The lemon filling was cooked on the stovetop using fresh lemon juice, sugar, cornstarch, and egg yolks, stirred constantly until thick and glossy. The meringue was made from the egg whites beaten with cream of tartar until soft peaks formed. Then sugar was gradually added while beating until the meringue formed stiff, glossy peaks. 18. Pineapple upside-down cake was baked in a cast-iron skillet for the perfect caramelized topping. Butter and brown sugar were melted in the skillet. Then pineapple rings and maraschino cherries were arranged in a decorative pattern. The cake batter was made from butter, sugar, eggs, flour, and pineapple juice, then poured carefully over the fruit arrangement. 19. Chocolate fudge brownies were dense, fudgy, and intensely chocolatey, made with real chocolate and plenty of butter. Unsweetened chocolate and butter were melted together slowly, then combined with sugar, eggs, flour, and vanilla to create a thick batter that was barely mixed to avoid toughness. Preserving the harvest. Picture this. It's 1977, and late summer means Grandma's kitchen transforms into a preserving operation as she works to capture the season's bounty in jars that will provide flavor and nutrition throughout the winter months. These time-honored techniques required knowledge, timing, and dedication to ensure safe preservation methods. 20. Bread and butter pickles were Grandma's signature preserve, made from cucumbers picked at their peak and processed the same day. Thin-sliced cucumbers and onions were layered with coarse salt and allowed to drain for several hours, then rinsed thoroughly and packed into sterilized jars. The pickling liquid was made from white vinegar, sugar, mustard seed, celery seed, and turmeric, boiled until the sugar dissolved and the spices released their flavors. The hot liquid was poured over the vegetables, leaving proper headspace. Then the jars were sealed and processed in a boiling water bath to ensure safe preservation. 21. Strawberry preserves captured the essence of early summer strawberries at their absolute peak of ripeness. Perfect berries were hulled and combined with sugar in a large, heavy-bottomed pot, then allowed to macerate until the berries released their juices. The mixture was cooked slowly, stirring frequently to prevent sticking, until it reached the proper consistency as tested by the plate method. A small amount cooled on a chilled plate would wrinkle when pushed with a finger. The hot preserves were ladled into sterilized jars, sealed, and processed to ensure long-term storage. 22. Dilly beans transformed fresh green beans into a tangy, crunchy pickle that became a family favorite. Fresh green beans were trimmed to fit in canning jars, then packed tightly with fresh dill heads and garlic cloves. The pickling solution was made from water, white vinegar, and salt, brought to a rolling boil to dissolve the salt completely. The hot brine was poured over the beans, leaving proper headspace. Then the jars were sealed and processed in a boiling water bath. Final treasures. Picture this. It's 1978, and Grandma realizes that her handwritten cookbook represents not just recipes, but a lifetime of culinary knowledge and family memories that need to be preserved for future generations. These final recipes represent the culmination of decades of cooking experience and the essence of family traditions. 23. Beef pot pie with homemade crust was Grandma's masterpiece of comfort food, combining tender beef stew with a flaky pastry crust. Chuck roast was cut into cubes and slowly braised with onions, carrots, celery, and potatoes in rich beef broth seasoned with herbs and bay leaves until the meat was fork tender and the vegetables were perfectly cooked. The filling was thickened with a mixture of flour and water, creating a rich gravy that bound all the ingredients together. The pastry was made from flour, lard, and ice water, rolled thin, and used to line a deep baking dish before being filled with a hot beef mixture. A top crust was added and the edges were crimped to seal. Then the pie was brushed with beaten egg and baked until the crust was golden brown and flaky. 24. Apple butter was made in huge batches every fall when the apple harvest was at its peak. Bushels of apples were peeled, cored, and chopped, then cooked slowly in large copper kettles with apple cider, brown sugar, and warm spices like cinnamon, cloves, and allspice. The mixture was stirred constantly with long wooden paddles for hours until it became thick, dark, and intensely flavored, then ladled into sterilized jars and sealed for winter storage. 25. Grandma's secret chocolate chip cookies were the final recipe in her collection, featuring a special technique that created cookies with crispy edges and chewy centers. The secret was browning the butter until it developed a nutty aroma, then cooling it slightly before combining with both brown and white sugars to create complex flavors. The dough was chilled for several hours to allow the flavors to develop, then baked just until the edges were golden, but the centers still looked slightly underdone. When recipes were love letters. And there you have it, 25 forgotten recipes from Grandma's cookbook straight out of the 1970s. These weren't just instructions for making food. They were love letters written in flour and sugar, passed down through generations like precious heirlooms. From those hearty Sunday dinners to elaborate holiday desserts, each recipe told the story of a time when cooking was an act of devotion and meals brought families together. Today, when we order dinner with a few taps on our phones, we might wonder what we lost when we stopped taking time to cook from scratch. These forgotten recipes remind us that the best ingredients are time, patience, and love, and that some traditions are worth preserving one handwritten recipe at a time.